Now for sale at former elementary school. Belvedere's District 100 believes any purchase benefits its future, but a former student worries about losing a connection to her community's past.
WIFR's Nathaniel Langley learns what's ahead for Kishwaukee School.
Jake, Sydney, Garden Prairie's former elementary school could be yours, starting at nearly $1 million. One woman claims, though, any sale may cost her hometown a piece of its memory.
Growing up as a kid going to Kish.
Mary Brubach knows Kishwaukee School.
I could walk to Kishwaukee.
And life hasn't led the 43-year-old too far from her former elementary.
Basically, you can see Kish almost straight through the solar fields.
The Garden Prairie resident calls it Boone County's last true country school.
If your grandparents went to that school, they could walk in and sometimes the teachers would still remember them.
Belvedere's District 100 left the property in 2013.
The selling of Kishwaukee School is inevitable.
Now, the school district prepares to deliver the building into new hands.
We don't want to continue to maintain that property as we really look to maximize all of our facilities in the district.
D100 starts bids at $750,000.
We'd look at operational and capital projects and helping to fund that work that is necessary in the district.
High Road of Belvedere leases the building from the school district. Superintendent Cassandra Shug says the private school doesn't wish to buy the property.
We certainly are respectful of that.
As of now, any deal will close on or before March 13th.
It's just stinky.
Brubach fears seeing more closing signs appearing in her village of around 300 people.
It's not abandonment, but it's dying. And there's nothing we can do about it.
The former student feels her school may only someday exist when she closes her eyes.
For the town of Garden Prairie, we're losing a piece of history.
I reached out to High Road of Belvedere for comment, but have yet to receive a response. Brubach noted, on the bright side for her community, they still have the Garden Prairie Cafe.
Any buyer of Kishwaukee will require the approval of D100 School Board. The district accepts bids until January 23rd.